Welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Again.
Again, yes, correct. Yeah.
So, as the NCIC, you've been running a national campaign on election bila noma, saying Penda Jirani, let's all maintain peace, elections come and go, let's observe peace and quiet during this period. It's been 14 days since we went to the polls. What is your observation so far? Have we maintained the peace or have we not?
Yeah, I think by and large, Kenyans have maintained the peace. And I really want to laud even the media, including the Standard Media Group, because we ran together a campaign called Election Bila Noma Penda Jirani, where we went across the country telling Kenyans the importance of good neighborliness, the importance of them keeping peace. And I want to say in this election, Kenyans have demonstrated that we can actually cast our votes and maintain peace. They have also demonstrated that our democracy has matured, and the political leaders who dissented the outcome of the presidential elections shows the right route, which is to go to court. And I want to commend both the President-elect William Ruto and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, because they did make statements, especially a day before the announcement of the results, where they called upon Kenyans to maintain peace, to uphold good neighborliness. And I think that one contributed also to the calm that we currently experience across the country. So I will say it's been a triumph of the spirit of the Kenyan people. They have demonstrated once again that they can actually go beyond the tribal and identity-based divisions that usually come around politics. And I would want to say that has also been tested, because the behavior of the political leaders and political supporters at Bomas, especially around the time the results were being announced, was a test to the people of Kenya, because they were watching it. They were trying to start some form of hostility, or maybe even create conditions that can make Kenyans rise against each other. And I'm glad that the people of Kenya did not buy that kind of behavior. They did not get sucked into that kind of action. And that is why it is a triumph for us as an institution, with all the partners that we worked with. We say, so far, we've delivered the peace that we wanted. We have had elections bila noma. We also had announcement of presidential elections bila noma. And we believe, moving to the Supreme Court, we shall resolve this issue through the constitutional and legal means that are given in our constitution. And we do expect that once the Supreme Court delivers its verdict, that should be the end of the dispute around elections, and Kenya should move forward.
Commissioner, do you think there has been a graduation? I mean, obviously, looking at, the time within which NCIC has been in operation, for example, and around elections when we see disputes, do you think there has been a graduation from how people felt and expressed that feeling, unfortunately, in violence, until the time that we see now? Has there been a maturity in the way in which people act, or is there exhaustion?
I think the 2007 and 2008 experience in Kenya was a wake-up call for most citizens. There are citizens and people who still have the scars of that particular period. And as a country, we promised ourselves that never again shall we go that route. Of course, our elections continue to be seen within the prism of violence and tension. This particular time, the reason why I think we got the peace we needed during the election is because we had all stakeholders, the media, government entities, civil society, community groups. All of them started early enough to speak about the need for peaceful elections, and also to encourage different groups not to be incited or manipulated by political groups or divided according to their ethnic identities. So that collective effort by different institutions and the fact that it started early is what I'll say made these elections substantially peaceful. And also the fact that the approaches we adopted this time, the peace caravan, the road shows, the peace actors for the first time went to the people the same way politicians go to the people. So it was a campaign about vote for peace, keep your neighbor, respect each other, tolerate your political differences, and so on, the same way politicians were looking for their own vote. In fact, I remember when we were coming from one of the road shows at the airport in Eldoret, one of the politicians from one of the formations told me that you, NCIC, and people were talking about peace are going to create many spoiled votes because the Kenyans will go and look for somebody called peace to vote for them. To vote for peace. But I told them that we often take for granted the fact that we need this peace, and it's only when you lose peace that you realize the importance of peace.
Yes.
And I think the message we took to the people of Kenya, and I could feel in all the roadshows and the interactions we had with the groups, that the people were listening and they were connecting with the message that we took to them. I also want to say that the fact that coalition building around communities and ethnic identities took center stage in these elections, where if you go to Kenya Kwanza or Azimio, One Kenya Alliance, the distribution of the political leaders and the elite in those camps cut across different ethnic identities and also different parts of the country. Yeah. So in a way, the crafting of coalitions during campaigns more or less recognizes the problem Kenya has. And that is why there was an emphasis about Kenya Kwanza, One Kenya, Azimio la Umoja, Muungano. You have all those things. What we are hoping is that apart from now collecting different leaders to form the coalitions, which help to neutralize, because you could not say this is for this tribe. You had Kikuyus in almost all the coalitions. You had Luos in almost all the coalitions, Luyas and so on. That one helped to distribute the problems of identity across, and it contributed to not categorizing one particular coalition as belonging to one community or to one part of the country. So we are hoping that since the naming of the coalitions and the formation of these groups around ethnic groups and regions is what has happened, we hope even in terms of whoever takes over, the policies will actually prioritize the need to build a cohesive nation, to make sure that Kenya now grows from being seen as a collection of tribes to being a country that everybody is proud of and people are patriotic and everyone is included, just the same way they included everyone in forming the coalitions.
Yeah. I'm also hearing you say then that NCIC cannot do this alone. Previously, it was, look, if something is going amiss in the country, NCIC, you must handle this. Somebody said something at a rally over the weekend. NCIC then must come in too. But from what you're saying, then NCIC can be there as a commission, but everybody then who is an interested party has to be an interlocking system, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, the challenge of creating peace and building cohesion in any nation cannot be done by one single institution. And that is one thing we recognized at the beginning as NCIC when we were appointed in 2019, that to deliver a peaceful election in Kenya will require, of course, the leadership from NCIC, the coordination, but everybody else has to put some contribution to it. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying, for especially the Kenyan media this time, I am sure most of you did not make a lot of money in those peace processes that we had, because it was also your contribution to ensure that we have a peaceful election. If you go to the communities, we were able to set up community structures, even standby structures now as we speak, where if there is a dispute, they are able to respond at that level. Yeah. Because if you operate from the national level as NCIC does, sometimes the time of responding to an incident is undermined by the fact that you are actually not available near enough to respond to it. So by the time you get there, that incident has grown, it has spread in terms of from one village to the next, from one group to the next. and that becomes more complicated. So it is true, not one single institution can deliver peace. Not one single institution can create the level of cohesion we require in the country. It requires all of us to work in synergy and in partnership, as we did in this particular election, for us to get it. So it is true. It's not NCIC alone which can do it. We are there to provide the coordination, to provide the leadership required, but we will pull other institutions to support us, as we did in these particular elections.
Talk to us about what has happened in the various communities where, prior to the election, there were some skirmishes, some flare-ups of violence, which many observers were saying is linked to the election. Let's say Marsabit, some parts of Isiolo, some parts of Lamu, some parts of Kerio Valley, where there were all these allegations, or let's say reports, that maybe what is happening here is some form of voter suppression or some form of just voter realignment. What happened around this time when the voting took place?
First of all, in all situations of conflict, and especially in the Rift Valley region and parts of Kenya, what you realize is that in places where communities have had unresolved grievances, either because of previous clashes between themselves or because of election-related issues or concerns around questions of land, where they have not been resolved substantively, during elections, those unresolved community grievances become the proxy the politicians use to advance their political campaign. They will go into the communities and remind them that your land was taken by this community. During this time, we fought, there was violence, your people were killed. So that alone is always something we are wary as an institution, that if there is an ongoing conflict or unresolved grievances that pre-exist the election, that one is going to be used for mobilization by those political leaders who will want to incite ethnic tensions in order for them to get the votes. The second dimension to conflict and politics is in places like you've mentioned, like Marsabit, where you definitely have a conflict that has been ongoing almost for many years now, and in other places. So where there is an ongoing conflict, and that conflict has identity issues, either clan or tribe, obviously during elections, what the politicians do is to create conditions for violence, either for their opponents not to vote or to disrupt the process of voting in order for that particular process to favor one of the candidates. So we've seen that in many places across the country. In others, they will even create violence, like, for example, in Samburu North, where perhaps the swing vote will come from a particular community. Then the political leaders who believe they will not be voted by that particular community invest in violence so that that swing vote disappears or is significantly reduced in a way that will not affect the dynamics of or the outcome of the elections. So we have all those the dimensions to the question of violence, conflict, and elections. And it even becomes more problematic when now you've got illicit small arms and light weapons, for example, in the north region of the country or in northeastern and parts of the place like Isiolo and Marsabit. Because that's where now also the criminal element creeps in, and those who have the guns utilize the void that comes during elections to advance their criminal activities and whatever commercial interest they may have. So it's a very complex relationship when you talk about politics, violence, and elections.
From your analysis of this particular election, did you see it impacting the turnout and then also maybe subsequently the result?
Obviously, in a situation where there is violence or threats of violence, you will find some people will be scared to go and vote. So I will say the response to your answer to your question is yes, there must have been some suppression of some kind. Whether it is significant enough to have altered the outcome of the elections or not, that one is now something we can all interrogate going forward. But I also want to say that the voter turnout was by and large low across the country. And we will have to interrogate why. But from where I sit, part of the reasons why we had this low voter turnout is because Kenyans were actually in a very bad state in terms of the economy. We've just come out of a very difficult period caused by COVID. The conditions of living and the standards of living people are suffering as we speak. And then also the fact that perhaps the holiday was not declared the day after elections. So if you do the calculation of somebody traveling from Nairobi to Kakamega to vote traveling on Monday to vote on Tuesday, and Monday was not a holiday, that also must have
and
impacted.
Wednesday is not a holiday.
And Wednesday is not a holiday. That must also have impacted on the voter turnout. So, and it's something maybe going forward we should find a way of doing, because there are people who live in the city but have to travel back to up country to cast their vote. And if there's no enough time for them to do that, and also considering the harsh economic conditions that currently exist, then that way they'll say there's no point of going to do that. But it is something that we need to interrogate as a country, because we need at least over 70% of the registered voters to cast their vote, and not as low as we experience in this particular election.
This election, when we're looking at the maths, just looking at the number of registered voters and those whom, according to the IEBC, were eligible to vote, we found that those who didn't vote, in terms of just sheer numbers, were more. 7 or 7.9 million?
Yeah.
Meaning, if those who didn't vote voted, they would have actually been the ones who would have voted in a presidential elect.
Yeah.
Now, we ask the question, what does that tell us about not just who was declared the winner of the election, but what does it tell us about us and how it is we view our elections? Because if you're talking about, there's a term we refer to as a protest vote. A protest vote cannot get any louder. When a third of your population tell you we are really not participating in this, it says something. But the question I want to ask is this. If we look at our electoral process and everything that goes on within it, from the way I have heard you speak, to understand such processes, surely you must understand who the players are. It's a question that always arises. What is it that the Commission has done with regard to profiling and understanding who these players are? Because the violence doesn't happen on its own. And going forward, what is it that the Commission plans to do to ensure that these individuals are actually brought to book?
Yeah, I think the question of voter apathy and the related one of the low voter turnout is obviously a concern to our institution, as it is to other agencies in the country. During the election Bila Noma campaign that we carried out, we were actually arguing that citizens should know that going for elections is their civic duty, and they need to exercise it. Secondly, we were very emphatic that when you have a low voter turnout, or even when people display voter apathy, it can actually be a threat to peace and stability. Because as you've said, if we had more people vote, perhaps the margins between the two presidential candidates will not have been as close as we came to see when the results were declared. So going to vote actually increases the chances of every citizen making their voice and their vote to count. And once you do that, even if there is a tie or a problem arises, you will realize that at your own personal level, you did cast your vote. So what we want to emphasize is the citizens must know that these 5 years you are given every year to review the kind of leaders you have is a very important opportunity that's given to citizens to elect their new leaders who can transform society in the manner in which they promise in terms of their campaigns and policies. And it is a very serious thing. There are people who like joking that elections should not be a serious thing, put it in their lungs. But it is a very serious thing, because that is the opportunity for you as a citizen to critically examine the people who are presenting themselves for elections from the MCA to the president level and see which one of them can actually has a better agenda for you for the next 5 years. If you make it a joke, then we can actually get jokers ascending to office. And we've seen it in the past where people who do not deserve to be leaders ascending to office, because those who are serious either take politics as something they are not supposed to involve in, and the citizens also just vote on the basis of the euphoria that the candidate has generated, as opposed to the content of what the candidate has for the people. So going forward, we will emphasize the importance of political education, voter education, because everything that happens now, between now and 2027, will be determined by those we have elected as MCAs, will be determined by those who have been elected to the Senate, National Assembly, and even the President, because they are the ones who will generate or to convert their manifestos into policies and then policies into programs. And if they are not they are not good people, if they are not people who have a better agenda for the country, then the country will suffer, and all of us will suffer. So elections is a very important thing. That's my message to the people of Kenya. And as I said, going forward, as a commission, we will keep emphasizing the importance of citizens participating in all electoral processes and in all electoral phases, not just the voting alone, even during campaigns and so on and so forth. And I just want to also to say another observation is when the new constitution was promulgated in 2010, the logic was that if you have 47 devolved entities where resources are devolved, it will reduce the appetite for the presidency. I think the last two elections demonstrate to us that appetite has actually heightened. It hasn't reduced. And that means we may need to find out why devolution did not increase the appetite for people to campaign and fight over seats at the county level. And we still have this obsession of who becomes president, and sometimes it becomes a do or die thing. So that is another observation that we've been able to see. And it tells you that either the 10 years of devolved governance did not impact substantially to the people of Kenya, or perhaps the 10 years, the leaders who have been there did not pay attention to the fact that they actually have the ability to change the lives of the people and develop those communities in a way that they will no longer be bothered about who becomes president. But it's a question that needs to be interrogated because presidential elections remain our threat to
big
peace.
Thing.
Yeah.
I think it's the latter, Commissioner. I think if many of this, by the time we were promulgating the Constitution, we had national leaders who are still in existence, and they still believe that their next big seat for them is a presidential seat. Now imagine if those national leaders, if Kalonzo had gone for governor of Kitui or Raila had gone for governor of Siaya, then they'd have changed the whole focus from the presidency. But as long as they're still there, and you see they are the leaders that we follow. Anyway, let's talk about this after we come back from the break. It's 27 minutes to 10. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. This week is that week when we are celebrating our birthday. From the 20th of August, for the entire week, we are looking back into the 3 years that SpiceFM has been on air and saying thank you. Thank you to our colleagues. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our listeners. Everybody who has contributed to us being on air for 3 years successfully so. Yeah?
Indeed.
Unawapatia keki? Wewe sasa, wewe kama
Me.
ndu.
Nangoja cake.
Unangoja keki. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly with our Commissioner Sam KONA from NCIC.
This is The Situation Room the only way to start your day.
Commissioner is saying, just looking across the country during this period, we've maintained peace, and the hope is that we continue maintaining peace. You know, when we say that, we are generalizing and saying, you know, we've maintained peace because there was peace before. But there were communities in this country who, before the election, did not know peace, Commissioner. Do they now know peace?
We are talking peace in relative terms. The peace we are talking about is the peace relating to the general election, where we've always had disturbances immediately after the elections, and particularly after the election results are announced. But we know that there are many communities in Kenya that have not enjoyed peace for many years. If you are talking about the Kerio Valley region, Marsabit, Isiolo, even Tana River, and so on and so forth. So we have had groups that have been in constant conflict across the country. And we, as a commission, plan to start a program called Ending Conflicts, All Conflicts in Kenya. We have the confidence that we can end all conflicts in Kenya over a period of 5 years because over the last 3 years, we've been able to bring total peace in places like Narok, particularly Narok North and South, save for Transmara. And also, we used to have a perennial problem border problem between Kakamega and Nandi. We intervened there 2 years ago, and last month, we actually went back to celebrate 2 years of peace at between the border of Nandi and Kakamega, and a similar process at the border of Nandi and Kisumu. So those three examples demonstrate to us as an institution that if we continue investing in grassroots interventions in a sustained way, you can actually secure communities from the ongoing violence. The second issue I would like to mention is there are also many parts of the country that have border problems, which often boil out into open violence between different groups. And those border problems is something that communities just need to be told. For some groups that are not supportive of peace, they think if you show them the border between, let's say, Kisumu and Kericho, that border will be the border between two communities. Yet the border is specifically for administrative purposes. And that's why we need to constantly...
It doesn't mean that
It doesn't mean now, if you are a Luo, you cannot be...
Cross.
And your land is in Kericho, you cannot. And that's why we always tell them, even in that particular... Because that's a real one, the Sondu region has a problem of border. We'll tell them that even if your land cuts across the two counties, you will still own both pieces of land. Perhaps the title will just be one for Kericho, another one for Kisumu or Nakuru and Narok and so on. So those kind of things are the ones that perpetually threaten peace. But I think the saddest thing for our country is the fact that over the years, we have actually squandered opportunities for true reconciliation.
Right.
I say that because if you reflect over the last 15 years, Kenya has had an opportunity to actually embrace total reconciliation and social cohesion, but we always get the opportunity and squander. The first one is the Kenya National Dialogue and Reconciliation Accord that came after the mediation of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. That particular accord had very clear, descriptive solutions to some of the problems facing Kenya, from the short term to the long term, and particularly the ones who are calling Agenda 4, where we are supposed to address issues to do with historical injustices, problems of regional imbalance in terms of economic development, the challenge of youth unemployment, and so on and so forth. But we never took time to implement some of those things. What we did was to deliver a new constitution and also to come up with a Truth and Justice and Reconciliation Commission, which submitted their report, but we never did anything with that report. And so long as those grievances and those challenges remain, it will always be a challenge to secure durable peace in the country. The second opportunity is linked to the first one. When we got the new constitution, was an opportunity for transforming our country and re-engineering it in a different way in terms of inclusion, better governance, and even creation of constitutional commissions, which were supposed to supplement government in a positive way in terms of the different mandates of these institutions, from IBC, National Land Commission, name them, and even NCIC. These were institutions that were created for purposes of supporting government agendas through the themes that have been. But our new constitution has come. We've not changed our habits as a nation. We have a new constitution, but we have not constitutionalized our behavior, and we have not entrenched the principles of the rule of law, the question around Chapter 6 of our constitution, and so on. So those are very important opportunities. The third one that we squandered is when the current president and his deputy joined hands in 2012. And at that time, we know very well the communities that were in conflict, particularly in 2007, 2008, that even led to the two leaders being taken to The Hague, the International Criminal Court. By the two of them coming together alone, there was pacification of their two communities, if you even want to start at that level. But I wish they would have just pushed themselves more to take this union between the two of them to beyond politics, to actually bring actual reconciliation between even the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin themselves, or Rift Valley and Central Kenya. We saw it as an opportunity, from a peace-building perspective, we saw it as an opportunity to actually start a real process of social reconciliation. But it became political, and all of us know where we are now.
It just sort of died.
I don't know that it died or it is still whatever. The other one is also the handshake between the president and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. When they came out of their meeting, the whole country was tense before that. And you could feel the relief across the country. They came up with the Building Bridges initiative, which was supposed to bridge, so to speak. But we know it also acquired a political angle. We squandered it. So what I'm saying is, we must begin to seize opportunities for reconciliation.
I see a fifth opportunity, Commissioner.
You see, like now, even the implosion between the deputy president and the president from Jubilee times, even the church leaders, religious leaders, kept calling on the president and his deputy to reconcile for the sake of the country. Because peace is both something that is lived, but it's also symbolic. If you see the president and his deputy working together, it affects the mood across the country. If they are pulling apart, the country is pulled apart. And that is why even that initiative and call by religious leaders for the president and his deputy to reconcile was a moment for the nation to come together and embrace reconciliation. So I just want to say, going forward, even after these elections, we must prioritize the need, first of all, to resolve the existing conflicts across communities, to put a final stop to all these border disputes, and then truly move forward as a country with a desire to truly reconcile and forgive each other and begin to love and care for each other.
I was saying I see another missed opportunity, and this is an NCIC. Because the Constitution creates the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, plus the others, the National Commission on Human Rights, like you said, the National Land Commission. Many of our historical injustices revolve around land. So the National Land Commission, which was supposed to come and look at the historical issues of land and try and resolve them, plus then a commission such as yourself, which is supposed to be looking at those sources of conflict and trying to identify them. The three commissions plus the others, but at least those three, National Cohesion on Human Rights, National Commission on Human Rights, and the National Land Commission, are squandering the opportunity to get us to that point. Because we don't see you strongly enough coming at the national level and saying this needs to happen at a national level, not just at a community level, but we need to have one big push towards first of all, getting the TJRC report out and interrogated and consumed by the public, and two, then implementing this TJRC report.
Absolutely. I agree with you that those are also missed and squandered opportunities. I did infer to it when I talked about the new constitution and the promise it had in terms of even the Article 59 commissions. They were supposed to support government in the way that you've just articulated. For us, as the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and through the National Land Commission, even the National Gender and Equality Commission, the National Commission on Human Rights, and so on, and all the Article 59 commissions, the so-called constitutional commissions, they have not really delivered as required when they were being created. So to that extent, I agree. And as I said, we should all now move forward from this culture of squandering opportunities or making them missed opportunities when we actually have an opportunity to transform and deal with our issues properly.
Actually, Commissioner, I agree when you say we should. We aren't commissions. We don't have the mandate. They do. NCIC has taken the initiative in many ways to try and fulfill their mandate. The fact that you're here and the fact that Standard Group has some working arrangements with NCIC is a step forward in the right direction. But we're not the only partners you have. You have partners with Nation Media. You have partners with religious organizations. Now, when religious organizations come up and say they are urging the president, I am certain they are behind the scenes activities where they call upon people to reconcile. But then the evidence of it, does one see it in their day-to-day activities? Do they give it a priority so that when they are preaching from the pulpits or when they're talking during their holy days, whether it is a Friday or a Sunday, is it something that they give priority? I know there are some religious organizations that do, but is it something consistent? Because the thing that is consistent are these problems we keep talking about. Consistent. But our activities, is it something that is pronounced once in a while and then let go of? Before an election, after an election, we go back to normal settings until something else comes up and it draws our attention to what needs to be done. NCIC are pivotal in that they can rally. At the end of the day, if there is an issue regarding land, problems will flare up. It will come to your doorstep.
Correct.
When problems arise, they will affect human rights. When human rights are affected, you will have this culture now of problems that never get resolved. NCIC is pivotal. They are like at a point where every commission that we've spoken of, they can actually bring them to the point where they not only join you in doing what you're doing, but ensure. Because if you look at, for instance, the commission that was set up to deal with land issues, the scandals that have surrounded it, hey, goodness gracious me.
It became a land buying commission.
Yeah, you actually ask yourself, these fellows are creating problems which they're supposed to resolve. Yes.
You know, one of the things that we need to recognize is absolutely what you've said. When it comes to issues of peace, cohesion, and reconciliation, people often get to be involved when there is a threat to it or potential threat. For example, during elections, this year, we all spoke about peaceful elections. But after the elections, people disappear. Everyone goes back to their place. And all these problems will remain until the next election again. So you are very right that the call for peace and reconciliation is often because there is a problem that is almost, sensational, like people have been killed, others have been displaced, houses have been burnt, and so on and so forth. But the real work of peace needs to happen when people are stable and calm, as opposed to when they are fighting. Even during this campaign we had for peaceful elections, in communities that were already engaging in terms of dialogue, in terms of markets, they get the message of peace and tolerance and togetherness better than groups that are not in talking terms because of violence or one form or the other. The second thing about these commissions that I would like to put forward is, for all these problems to be resolved, let's just take, for example, the problem of conflict in North Rift, in Kerio Valley. Those conflicts are very complex. For you to resolve them terminally, to end them, you need a sustained program of 15 to 20 years. Why do I say that? One, you need to invest in education so that you increase the level of literacy among those pastoralist communities to a point that there are no idle young people who have nothing else they know except owning that gun and chasing the cow. If you pull all of them to school, and that requires a serious program of investment in, first of all, constructing schools and ensuring people go to school, even if by force. The second thing is you need to invest in infrastructure in terms of places where people can go and do business. I mean, create an environment that is vibrant in terms of economy as you invest on the peace building component, which is the soft side. So for those kind of programs to happen, first of all, you need time. Secondly, you need resources. And that is one of the other challenges all these commissions are facing. If you go to the National Land Commission or NCIC, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, National Gender and Equality Commission, just ask how much they get per year to do the kind of work, to deliver their mandate. That is why most of them, you will see them looking for donors to support their work. Yet they are national institutions. An institution like NCIC, for example, has the agenda that is of a national nature, like issues of patriotism, cohesion, values. They shouldn't be getting money from outside to do that for their own country. Our own government and our own people should support that institution to deliver that, because that is the basic duty as a citizen and as a government, to make your citizens more patriotic.
As citizens, we do our bit. We pay these exorbitant taxes with minimum complaint.
So that's why I'm saying there is also issue around resourcing of these institutions that undermines their ability to deliver their own mandate. Obviously, if they were all to work together and maybe work as a team, they are more likely to lobby government for more resources and also to lobby for some activities to be undertaken. For example, just getting the Truth and Justice and Reconciliation report and breathing life into it by implementing part and sections of it. But as you said, the question of land is what is at the heart of some of the grievances we have. Those also who get the instruments of power are also wired in this problem of land. And that is why sometimes there is no incentive for the political leaders and those in power to implement them, because where do you start, who do you touch, and where do you end?
Commissioner, I have a question. I mean, and a lot of these things are hard and fast. You can see them. You can see what the problem is that would then essentially topple peace later, right? You can see the land issue. It is clear. Those have been there for years. But then there's a lot that's subliminal. It's under the surface. You can't really touch it until you hear somebody speak a certain thing. Is this a threat as you see it? As NCIC, as anybody who's looking, is it a threat that there are things that people might have bubbling under the surface that could essentially come out? And if so, how do you deal with them going forward? This election also has seen, we've heard certain things being said that maybe had been hidden for the last 5 years, right? But it gives them an opportunity to come to the surface. How do you deal with those things? And are they felt truly, or do people just use them during these times for propaganda? And if they're felt, how do you attack them? How do you get rid of them?
If you listen to the testimonies of people who have been affected by violence across the country, first of all, the way we conducted our Truth, Justice and Reconciliation process did not give the citizens, those who were affected, the opportunity to ventilate and say what is in their hearts. Because you require a safe space for you to do that, to say it. Ventilating is a healing process. It makes you heal if you are given an opportunity to say it. So in our work as we go across the country, people are actually hurting as we speak. There are those who have never recovered from the violence of 1992. They still harbor it in their hearts and they transfer it to their children that our condition is the way it is. You will hear testimonies of people saying, I now live in Thika, for example. But I used to have a huge farm in Molo. Which, for one reason or the other, they had to dispose because they needed to be safe. And they needed some resources. Those are people who have something deep in their heart. They have memories that they have not left them. And they are transferring those memories and bad feelings to their children and other generations. That is why when I use the word true reconciliation, I actually mean it in the comprehensive sense, where you get people, first of all, to say what they have in their hearts, who they think has hurt them over the years, and get an opportunity for them to speak face to face. If you have offended me and we don't get time to speak face to face, I will never heal, you will never heal.
True.
We will never resolve that problem. There are many people and communities in Kenya that are in that state. The anger is still intact. And that is why when it comes to heightened times like politics, a statement, a small statement, revives the feelings and reminds you what happened before. So when I say reconciliation, it is starting with where people are in terms of their feelings, in terms of their emotions and their histories and the relationship they had before. And then moving forward to a point where now I may not forget that you did something for me in 2007 or 2008, or I have scars of being burnt in Naivasha in 2007, 2008. It is now I have accepted and I have forgiven you. So there is the element of also forgiveness. That let us, and when we reconcile and forgive, you actually sit together as a team and forge a new relationship, and also you engineer a better future where you can have a relationship despite your past. Those processes take years, and they take a lot of emotions also to manage them, and it requires a genuine desire to actually
see it happen.
And it takes time. So I will say there are many people who are hurting across the country, and some of the causes of the suffering and all the pain that people have is about land, it's about conflict, it's about politics. But during campaigns, because our campaigns are usually crass and almost, there's a lot of propaganda. There are those who will use propaganda to get the votes. But that statement of propaganda revives negative emotions in other people. And sometimes people boil out into the open and attack their neighbors because of that.
Commissioner Sam KONA, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for having this conversation with us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation today. This is our birthday week again. We've been on air for 3 years as SpiceFM, and we thank you all. Have a lovely day. We'll be seeing you tomorrow.
This is the Situation Room, the only way.